Today on Cosmo Times,
we will explore our favorite cities, LA, New York, Melbourne, and Shanghai, to discover what is unusual art. Cosmo Times.
welcome to this week's episode of Cosmo Times, and I'm here at Hua's Gallery.
Oh my goodness, you're back, and in this dress.
Isn't this perfect for today's episode of Unusual Art and Fashion?
Unusual indeed. No offense.
Well, let's first hit streets of New York, Melbourne, and Shanghai and find out
What kind of unusual material do you think clothes can be made out of?
Fashion Week is coming up quickly and design is on everyone's mind. I'm hitting the streets to see what materials people think they can make clothes with.
Probably cotton. Cotton. It's cotton.
Cotton.
And I dream a dream.
I'm thinking some kind of plastic rubber mixture.
Pleather.
Wear them more times.
It's comfortable. I like to go out. It's breathable.
Because it's warm and it's cool, both.
It'd be really easy to clean, I think. You just wipe things off, and also you'd look like a superhero all day. That'd be kind of cool.
It's the perfect combination of not leather and plastics.
T-shirts and I guess cottony sweatpants. Dresses. A lot of sundresses.
Capes, masks, belts, shirts,
Like a denim jacket out of pleather.
suits, shoes, socks.
A dress. A man dress. Because men can totally pull that off.
The recap for the word on the street is as follows. People here in New York City like to keep it simple, and they'd like to make their clothes out of cotton. Now, as for me, I'd like to take a bolder turn. I would make my clothes out of flowers. Not only would I look bright all the time, but I would smell fabulous too. Reporting for Cosmo Times, I'm Christy Clemens. Now we're gonna go check in with Melbourne.
Have you ever wondered what your clothes are made out of? If it's like me, you may be wearing cotton, wool or polyester. Well, I'm in Fitzroy, Melbourne's more creative corner of the city, to find out what other materials clothes can be made out of. What are your favourite materials to wear?
Well, probably natural materials, I guess. Cottons and wools and all those sorts of things.
What materials can be made into clothes?
Oh, anything. Rubbish bags, recycled materials.
I'm just a fashion victim, I suspect, just like everyone else. But wearable arts festival I get involved in sometimes, where people do just anything they find. They'll make articles of clothing and then parade it, and look really fashionable and good in it.
I once wore a bin liner to a to a fancy dress party. That was quite interesting. Actually, I once made a dress out of tinfoil, also for a fancy dress party.
What materials can clothes be made out of?
Other than what I'm wearing, paper.
I feel like the answer to that is always corn now, because everything's being made out of corn all of a sudden.
Corn? Oh, yeah, why not? So the word on the street is natural materials are best. And definitely stay away from garbage bags. This is Artin Jama reporting for Cosmo Times from Melbourne. Now back to Shanghai.
Shanghai's definitely a silent city, but we're not content just looking at styles. We want to get specific. So we're hitting the street to find out what fabric and textile are hot this season. Silk, leather, let's find out.
我自己的衣服就是用真丝做的，所以我可能会用真丝，就是比较透气，然后质地看上去比较高级一点。
crossover 的东西吧，就是比较拼的，比如拿某一种材质和另一种材质拼起来。
丝的吧，欧根纱吧，好像近几年比较流行欧根纱。
会想用徕卡吧。 然后还有那种绸的、缎的，都是比较亮的反光面的那种衣服，还蛮好的。
我觉得用树叶做衣服比较好。像那个马来西亚有一个设计师，他叫唐楚丽，那么他有一个设计就是比较环保，我觉得他的设计应该是理念还是不错的。
从塑料袋啊，然后这些环保的产品来回收做衣服，我觉得这个蛮好的。
我想用报纸做一件衣服。
糖果，
就冰淇淋吧。我觉得冰淇淋比较可爱一点，
因为我比较喜欢吃甜品。
用冰块做衣服可能会挺蛮凉快的。
Wow, that's a lot of ideas coming from the street. But you know what? I didn't hear anything about leather. I think spandex should make a comeback. There's definitely not enough spandex in Shanghai. I'm Christine, and that's the word from Shanghai.
There are a lot of people in New York and Melbourne who appreciate unusual materials for clothing. Paper, rubber, tinfoil.
And I like Shanghai's suggestion to wear clothes made of ice and ice cream.
Coming from a woman in a paper dress, that doesn't surprise me at all. No offense. What is art and what is it made of?
And what makes it unusual?
After the break, we'll hit up New York and Los Angeles to see what kind of unusual art lies within these cosmopolitan cities. Cosmo Times. Welcome back to Cosmo Times' Unusual Art Edition. What happened to your dress?
Oh, I made it into an art piece, see?
Now that's unusual, no offense.
There you go again with the no offense when you're clearly being offensive.
Me? Offensive? No.
Well, let's move on to more unusual art forms, starting with New York City such unusual art.
Here in New York City, there's hundreds of exhibits going on nearly every day, but we're going to show you some of the more unusual ones. On this city search, we're heading over to our first stop, which is going to be MoMA. A little hint, you're going to be using less of these and more of these. It is called Sounds, a Contemporary Score. It consists of 16 artists from 10 different countries around the world. And it's looking at their interpretation of sound through engineering, through technology, architecture, a little bit of everything. If you could think of it, it's probably in there. So let's go see what it's all about.
So I hope people come to the show and really then think about sound and pay attention and really listen. Because we smell, we touch, and we tend to move so fast in our life, and to take the time.
We're going to talk with the curator, Barbara London, and find out her inspiration behind this exhibit. This isn't your typical subway bench.
This is a subway bench that Sergei Chepnin bought basically online. The MTA was selling benches, they don't anymore. This is very kind of typical. He likes to drive sound through material. So he's driving the sound through the wood, the subway bench, and then it comes through your body, through bone conduction. So you hear it sort of ambient, but you also feel it, and then you become a speaker.
I am a human speaker. I feel like I'm at Brookstone, you know, when you sit in those chairs and you're like, ugh. But this is really cool.
And this is a work that becomes social. This is an area where normally we have a very soft bench, so our public comes and sits, and now they'll have maybe a conversation with someone they don't know about exactly what they're experiencing. So we're standing in front of a work by Richard Garrett, and it is called, ironically, Before Me.
You won't believe what's before you at Before Me. This piece consists of an LP record player and an upside-down turntable, running at 33.5 revolutions per minute. A marble is placed on the turntable and only moves slightly before its weight keeps it in the same position.
So we all think about our life and our daily routines, and sometimes we're psychologically stuck. So here we've got a sonic kind of sculpture which has many poetic sort of metaphors contained in it.
Whoever said seeing is believing hasn't been to Sounds. The exhibition is all about taking the time to wind down and have a listen. With everyone so plugged into their own music and sounds, this exhibit allows museum goers to connect with others and themselves. Now that we've seen what MoMA has to offer, it's time to head over to the Guggenheim. And if you think the lights here in New York City are bright, you ain't seen nothing yet. James Turrell's exhibition mixes daylight with electric light. He's one of the main artists associated with the light and space movement, which started in Southern California during the mid-1960s. Turrell once said, "I want the strength of the power and the primal relationship we have to light to be the strongest."
People often are taken aback by contemporary art. They feel it's kind of in their face in some way, and they are not so willing to submit to it and enter the realm created by the artist. So for me, that's a very important step, is to make something that people want to submit to, but there's some reward for having done that.
Through the art that we saw today, it looks like contemporary artists want us to experience their art. Seeing it, hearing it, or a mixture of the two, they're connecting people together and to themselves. Reporting for Cosmo Times, I'm Christy Clements.
Why are you being unusual now?
Me? Unusual? I'm just creating my own song art. You know, as we just saw what the artists at MoMA did.
Right. Anyways, today is a special day because for the very first time, we have a new city search straight from California, Los Angeles.
Okay, let's see what unusual art forms they have for us today.
If normal art somehow bores you and you want to explore some new art form, I think you're at the right place. I'm going to visit Lily Larkage. She is one of the most famous neon artists in the United States, and her neon sculpture is really fascinating. So let's go in and check it out. Creating the neon art for over 40 years, artist Lily Larkage exhibits more than 75 of her fine art neon sculptures in her 5,000 square foot art studio and gallery in the art district of downtown Los Angeles.
I created my first neon sculpture in 1966 using a piece of scrap neon that the sign company had given me. And it was a little white heart, and I used some plastic with it, put it in a frame. And it was my very first work.
Very first work.
Yeah, very small, 12
Very
inches
small.
by 12 inches.
So through the past 45 years, you've been doing the neon sculpture. So how many pieces of work have you been created? Can you remember?
Probably around 500.
Around 500.
Yeah. I started being interested in neon while I was still a small child. My father was in the Army, and we would have to drive across the country frequently from one Army base to another and looking at the neon signs in the landscape. At that time, there were lots of cowboys on horses, shooting Indians, lassoing trucks with their wheels spinning. And as a child, it was just fascinating, these pictures in lights. And we would choose the motel we stayed at based on which one had the best neon sign. And I got to choose. So when I went to art school, they were not teaching anything to do with neon or any electricity. And I found that I just didn't like painting, and I didn't like printmaking or sculpture. So I went to a local sign company and asked them if they would teach me. And they said no, they wouldn't teach me, but one person gave me a couple of scrap neon tubes, made me a little diagram of how to wire it to a transformer, and told me where to buy a transformer, and so that's how I started in 1966.
This is one of your beautiful neon artwork I really like and really interested. So when did you create this piece?
I created this work in 2005.
2005.
It was made out of my Volvo.
So this is your real car?
My real car, which I drove for many years until the fuel injection system died, and then it couldn't be fixed. And then it got cited by the police. It had to be off the street in 72 hours. So at that point, I had to do something with it, and I didn't want to junk it. I always wanted to build it into a sculpture, but I never had a good idea. So I went out to dinner with my friend Juan Larios, and he said, well, why don't you just cut a wedge out of it and wrap it around the corner of a wall?
So how did you feel when you heard about his idea?
I said, oh my gosh, that sounds really difficult and really expensive. So I let the idea sit for a couple days, and then I thought, well, that's a really good idea. So we had the car towed to a wrecking yard, and they took out the engine and all the parts, and did a rough cut of the car, and then Juan did the finish cut.
If you think the cost of neon art is expensive, then you will be fascinated by the work of Annie Terrazon in Los Angeles. Her work has always been about trash. She used found objects and used materials, collectively told stories within her paintings. This one is really nice, a really nice piece. I like it very much. So when did you create this one?
That was this year. Earlier, I think it was in April, I got into a pretty serious car accident. Stopped me from working for about a month. One of the people that I knew and who loved my work had some old newspapers that they gave me. The woman represents now. That everything in the back is the past. And the work in the front is all done with new newspaper, and those are all, you know, variously recent headlines. And I wanted to show the time that has passed in newspaper and the world. So I'm getting ready to exhibit this piece and another piece in a show in Santa Monica next month. And it's all about nostalgia. This piece was fine this morning, and I just couldn't stop messing with it. So I'm taking it in another direction now. We'll see how it goes.
Looking at two different artistic styles between Lily Larkage and Annie Terrazon, I hope you can sense the free-spirited style common to Los Angeles art scene. The art here is unique, and it's influential to the future movement of art. I'm Xiwen, reporting from Los Angeles for Cosmo Times.
Welcome back to Cosmo Times, Unusual Art and Fashion Edition.
So far, we've explored unique materials and concepts in New York City and Los Angeles.
Next, we will explore the unusual art forms right here in Shanghai, a city known for attracting people of unusual taste.
Art is a boundless craft embracing many different mediums. And here in Shanghai, from the city's parks to public squares, we see examples of innovation and creativity. But today we'll meet an architect who's painting without brushes. Kang Yi has been in Shanghai for 2 years. She's a professional architect and an amateur artist.
I started painting when I was probably about 7 because my mom likes painting. So she was the one who taught me. So I guess it was about 7 or 8 that I started.
But through an accident, she found the inspiration to approach her art without brushes.
I started painting without a paintbrush when I came to China about 2 years ago because I forgot my paintbrushes. So I thought I would just use whatever materials that I found in China. What do you want me to do with this?
Paint.
Paint with a basketball?
Yes.
Okay.
Kang uses whatever she can find to paint portraits of famous figures. She also records the process, then posts the video online, where they've already received more than 1 million hits. After using basketballs to paint portraits of Yao Ming, she turns to stockings to create a portrait of Zheng Yimou in an old-fashioned Shanghai alley.
I chose that place because I think that's something really special about Shanghai. I love it here, and one day when I walked into this alleyway, I saw a lot of clothes being hung on a bamboo stick, and I thought that was really pretty and very different. It's something really ordinary to locals, but to me it was very special. And I think with Zheng Yimou's work, he has a lot of bamboo elements in it, and I think he features this Chinese culture really beautifully through the costumes that he uses as well. So that was how the connection was drawn.
believing that her process was becoming too complicated. Using cucumbers to form houses in grass, onions to form owls, and little potatoes to create balloons. Kong's methods certainly aren't traditional. Apart from that, her work looks so delicious, visitors can't help but take a bite.
One of the pieces I did was a skyline of Kuala Lumpur. It's done with I arranged pieces of rice with hot sauce, with little anchovies on a banana leaf, and the sun's made of a hard-boiled egg. This took about an hour to make. It ranges from 15 minutes to about an hour, but the longest piece so far has been 4 hours. Because the gelatin took a long time to set, so I had to do it with the fridge open. I actually did this inside the fridge. The tiger one, a lot of people liked it. It took a long time to chop up all the pieces of carrots. It's made of carrots, radish and prunes, and I did that because a mum wrote to me and said that she wanted to encourage her kids to eat more vegetables. It was inspired by Life of Pi because I just watched the movie.
Though seemingly ordinary, Kong has spent a lot of time deciding what kind of food she'll use to paint. As an architect, she's developed a sensitivity to texture and has a clear idea how to use different kinds of textures to show her audience what she wants them to see.
I thought it was interesting to just discover how everyday ordinary materials can be used differently, and I think that's why it appealed to so many people, because it was surprising. It was something that has not really been explored before, and I'm a bit of an experimenter and an explorer. I wanted to play around with new things.
For Kong, living in Shanghai is quite a unique experience. She hopes to dig out more cultural elements from within the city to better illustrate her works of art. She plans to create work based on Chinese characters, in art inspired by metropolitan migration.
I thought I'd start with a personal project of creating Chinese characters every day with a different material. So for example, hua dou de hua, I would make it out of flowers, something like that. So it was, I guess it's for non-Chinese speakers to recognize these characters easier. I guess it's more of a visual connection that I was trying to do.
The search for different materials is a driving force for Kong to paint. Her 2 years in Shanghai has given her a lot of inspiration, allowing her to create many surprising works of art. With an impressive approach, we certainly look forward to seeing more from Kong-yi.
It looks like New York's unusual art is quite avant-garde, whereas Shanghai's is more down-to-earth.
Whereas LA is somewhere in between, unlike your paper thing, no offense.
It is not my fault that you don't know the difference between unusual and creative, no offense. Well, that's the end of today's show, where we learned that unusual art forms are just another path to self-expression.
Tune in again next week when Cosmo Times will be looking into famous local musicians.
Really? Maybe I should bring my guitar.
No offense, but I don't think...
See you next time.
Paper, rubber, tinfoil.
Yeah, and I like Shanghai's suggestion. Well, next.